problems from the book to describe what's going on and see if we can sustain cooperation. So let's just do the first problem in the book, 15.1, and see if we can actually get it. This is called the cubicle game. So this is 15.1. This is what they call it anyway. This is the cubicle game. And it's going to be a repeated game, but a repeated game of a different sort. A, B, C. We call it cubicle 101, cubicle 102, X, Y, and Z. And here's our payoffs. Now, before we even go and let them tell us what to look for, what should we do with this game? We should go and figure out what the Nash equilibria are in the stage game itself. So let's figure that out. Player 102 is playing X. What should player 101 do? A, B, or C? C. Player 102 is playing Y. Player 101 should play B. Z should play, sorry, that's supposed to be 0. Also B. Okay. Other way around. It's active symmetric, so it's, I think, yeah, symmetric, so this is going to make it a little easier for us. But you can see what's going to happen. Player is playing A. Player 2 should play Z. Player B should play Y. Player C should play A. Okay. So you can see what's the Nash equilibrium? 3, 3. And yet we could be both made better off by AX. But actually, another way we could be both made better off is moving to here. Is moving to the corners. So maybe we could do something with that. Now here's the twist on this game. If we could actually, we already have done this before, if we were playing this as an indefinitely repeated game, or infinitely repeated game, we could sustain cooperation by saying play AX forever unless there's some defection. What's the defection that you could possibly do? 2's playing X, player 1 should play C, get the 10, but then what would be the Grimm trigger? If you ever play anything besides A, I'm going to play Y forever. And that's a credible strategy because it's Nash equilibrium, right? The punishment path is credible. And so then you've paid off, well, I get a bonus of 2, but then I lose 5 forever. Right? And so you can imagine a Grimm trigger that we can hold that together without too much difficulty, right? We already know how to solve that. But here's the part that people think about to try to make this more realistic. People don't live forever, right? That's one of the problems. But the twist we're going to put in is we're going to say they actually don't live at the same time either. They live at different times. And so what we're going to do is, it's called an overlapping generation game. And here's the way that this is going to be described. In each period, the occupants of cubicles 101 and cubicle 2 play the game here. The difference is, although the cubicles are infinitely lived, they're in some office somewhere, their occupants come and go as a person lives for only 2 periods. Now, if they live for 2 periods at the same time, and then they're replaced at the same time, what do we expect to happen in period 2? What's going to happen? Can they sustain 8-8? In the last period, if I think player 2 is playing X, what should I do as player 1? Play C. Player 2 knows that, so player 2 should say, oh, well, we don't want to get that 0, so I'm going to play B instead, and then I can at least get right here. Right? So we can't sustain either of these or this in the last period of the game, right? And that means what would happen in the first period if it's a 2-period game? They both, remember, on the last period, they should get 3-3. What should happen in the first period then? Because it's a finite game, finitely repeated. What happens in our centipede game when we roll it back?
Both.
So we should just get this in the 2 periods sometimes. Now, if they could somehow convince each other to get there, they could do it, but in the last period, it's not credible to go back to there, right? So that means in the first period, it's also not credible. That's the idea on a finite repeated game. But here's what's going to happen instead of them really living at the same time. When the occupant of cubicle 101 is in the first period of his time in that office, the occupant of 102 is in the second and final period of her time. Analogously, when the occupant of 102 is in the first period of her life, the occupant of 101 is in the second period of his life. There's an infinite number of periods, and each person's payoff is the sum of single period payoffs during his 2-period lifetime. So the idea is that you could say we're working in an office, and each player only works, say, 2 years in the office, or 2 days in the office, whatever it is. And when it's your second year, it's my first year. And then you are fired or quit, or whatever it would be. And then when it's my second year, a new person comes in to replace you, Blaine, and it's your first year, and it's my second year, and then I am fired. And then Sierra replaces me. It's Blaine's second year, Sierra's first year. Can you see how we're trading off like that? And that's why it's called overlapping generations. Nobody leaves at the same time. Nobody comes at the same time. Right? If we both left at the same time, then we wouldn't be able to do anything. We already say it's finite. But the interesting thing is, we're going to be able to sustain cooperation by with the overlapping parts, by having a contingent strategy. So let's see what it says to do. It says, find a subgame perfect Nash equilibrium that results in a sequence of play that alternates between CX and AZ. That switches between CX and AZ. Okay. So this is a little tricky here to do this. What can we do to make this work? And so what you have to think about is it's a symmetric game in as much as they both are. I'm going to live in the first period, I'm going to live in the second period, and then I'm going to leave. What's going to happen in the second period? What's the person who's just about to be fired or is just about to quit? What are they going to do? Suppose that we were playing 8-8. We try to sustain. Now, this isn't an equilibrium. What would I expect them to do? Grab the 10. Now remember, we've said, the book says here, what are you supposed to look for? We're supposed to look for a place where we alternate between these two. So do you think in the second period, so let's put it this way. In the second period of the game, do you think that we're going to play here? That is for the second, do you understand what I'm saying? If it's the person, let's say 101 is in the second period of the game, or of their tenure. They're in their second year, they're about to quit, or they're about to be fired, whatever it is. They're about to quit. Do you think that they're going to be playing here or there? Let's go the other way. Suppose we're right here. We're in the second period of the game. We think we're currently playing AZ for the second year of that person. It's the first year of this person, the second year of this person. It's the second year of this person. What should they want to do? They think currently player 2 is playing Z. They think they're playing A. But what should they want to do? It's their last period. What should they do? Move to B and get the A. So we already can see we can't sustain that as an equilibrium. So let's check the other one. Because this is the way you work it out. It tells you, here's what the equilibrium looks like. Now we just have to figure out how is it alternating. So now we're in the second year of 101 again, of the person who's in this cubicle. They're currently here. Player 2 is playing X, player 1 is playing C. They're in the second year. Do they want to move? 101 does not want to move. So that must be the way it works. The way it must work is if in your, so if it's in your second year, so let's do, I'm going to say that we're going to do this for player 101. For player 101, the person who's there, if it's in their second year, they must be playing C. Now remember, we're trying to put together an equilibrium where we're alternating between CX and AZ, going back and forth. Okay? That's what the equilibrium looks like. We're trying to see that go back and forth. Which must mean what? If they play C in period 2, what must they be playing in period 1? A. Okay, this is their first year. When I say T equals 1, that's their first year of their life. They must be playing A. Now, That's what's, under what circumstances, we should make it more contingent. Under what circumstances would they be playing this? If they've been doing this all along, right? If everything I've seen before looks like this, that is, if we're on the equilibrium path, you might say, then I'm going to play this. If this, then I'm going to play this in period 1, and period 2, I'm going to play that, and then else, what should I do? If I see somebody deviate, what should I do? I should play B, right? I should play B. Because now we have the logic of how we hold an equilibrium together, right? We go for the grid trigger right away, and then we can try more complicated strategies, but we'll start with that. Okay. So then, you can imagine what it's going to be for player 102. Remember, their period 1 is actually 101's period 2. Right? Because they're overlapping in different ways. But if it's their period 1, what should they play?
Why?
Should they be playing? Remember,
Oh.
do they want to? We're switching between these two.
Oh.
If it's their first period, should they be getting the 5 or the 10?
C, 10.
If it's their second period, their second year of their life, should they be getting the 10 or the 5? If they're getting the 5, what do they want to do in their last period? They want to move to the 8, right? Given that the other player is playing C. So we can't allow that. They must be playing in their first year, they must be playing 5, because in the second year, which is 101's first year, in their second year, they must be getting the 10. So they must be getting the Z. So that's 2. 2. Which means they're doing what in the first period? X. Okay. And then else, what should they do? They should play Y. Okay. So now we just have to hold this together. We have to see, is this actually correct? And because it's symmetrical, we're only going to have to look for one person. But that's what we're going to do. So what we need to check is we really need to check in the first year of their life, are they doing, first year in the office, are they doing something optimal? And in the second period, are they doing something optimal? That's what we need to check at both those times. And we need to also check, suppose we're off the equilibrium path, are you doing what's optimal? Well, let's first check on the equilibrium path, right? So we're going to try to hold the equilibrium together. That we're currently switching between CX and AZ. And so all I've seen in the past is them switching back and forth. I come into the office, I'm player 101, it's player 102's second period, second year, it's my first period, my first year. What do I get by following the equilibrium, right? I want to check is follow the strategy, is that at least as good as bad when deviating? Now, we don't actually even have a discount factor on this one, because it said they just value them equally, but you can throw in a discount factor. So let's see what we get. I follow the strategy. It's player 102's second year. That means they are playing Z. It's so I guess first check for check player 101. Check for first year. Yeah, first year. By following the strategy, what do I get today? They're currently playing Z because it's their second year. And I'm supposed to do what? I'm supposed to play A and get 5. Right? I'm supposed to play A. The other player's playing Z, because that's what they're supposed to be doing. And I get A. Now, what do I get the next year? Looking down the path. Assuming, remember, the other person is playing. Now a new person has come in, has replaced the retiring 102. They're now in their first year. It is now my second year. If I follow the strategy, they're playing X, because we're assuming they're following the strategy. I play C and I get 10. Okay. I need to see if I could be made better off by doing something else. Right? Remember, we take the other person's strategy as given. That means in period 2, their period 2, my period 1, they're playing Z. They are currently playing Z. What might I be tempted to do instead of playing the A? Right. So this is C. So instead I might play B, and I get, if I play B, 8. Okay. And then now that I've played something else, what are they going to play? Following their Nash equilibrium, right? They saw me, they were expecting me to play A against Z. I didn't. So we're no longer on this path. This is if we're going to do that. So that means else we're going to play Y. So what's my best response to them playing Y? B. So I get, and then what do I get from that? So in period 1, do I actually want to follow the strategy if I'm the first person? If I'm player 101? Yeah. Right? Because 15 beats 11. Right? So that worked out. Now let's check to see in my second year if I want to follow it. How many payoffs am I going to get? This one is I actually have 2 periods of payoffs, but what's going to happen in my second year? I get what? Remember, we're assuming the other player is playing their strategy. They're playing X. It's my second year. They're playing X. And my strategy says in my second year I should be playing C. And I get from playing CX, I get 10. So that's what I get. If I somehow decide to deviate, right, it's playing C. They're playing X. If I deviate, what's the best I could get? A. Right? And that means I could get 8. That's the best I could get. So am I going to want to get off? No. Okay. So that means I don't want to get off the equilibrium path. And notice that it's symmetric, right? So if this holds for 101, it's going to hold for 102. Right? Even though notice that so far we're not living forever. We're not infinitely repeating this game. We're actually only playing this game. Every person is only in the game twice. I mean, it is in 2 periods. What's the other thing that we need to check? We don't need to because it's symmetric. We need to check if we're off the path already, do you want to continue, do you want to follow the strategy, right? Right now, essentially what we checked was this part here, and we checked it for this player. Yep, they want to follow this, holding that constant. Now we want to say, suppose somebody's ever off the path, do you still want, if we're currently in this subgame, the else subgame, do you still want to stay on B? But this isn't very hard to follow, right? Why can I check that pretty easily? We're currently off the path. That means that player in the 102 is playing Y all the time, which means what's my best response to them playing Y all the time? B. So that means the punishment path is credible. Okay. So if off path, and it doesn't really matter which period I get. If I'm off, it's not off the path, but if we're in the punishment path. By staying on the equilibrium, I get 3. That is by playing B. The best I could do otherwise, since they're playing Y, is I could stay, well, I guess I could do C instead. I get 1. So I don't want to move. So notice what we've done with this. We check to see if the equilibrium path, if we can get what the best response is. And this says this is actually the best response. This is the way to do it. And then we check the punishment path, and that's also the best response. So even though we didn't, right, someone's only living 2 years, or whatever it is, 2 periods in this game, you can actually sustain. It's not the same kind of cooperation, but look what's happening here. The 3-3, both are made better off instead of getting 3 twice, right, which is what they get without the cooperation. You could get 6-6 for it. You could get 6, right, 3 plus 3 every time you come into the office. But instead, they essentially say, you take the 5 the first period, and then I know you're going to take the best thing the second period, 10. But essentially, I'm going to pay you off to take that 5. I know you can go get the 8, but then you're going to be worse. So you'll be able to take the 10, kind of the best payoff you could get in your second period, as long as you sacrifice in the first period to keep us on the equilibrium. That's kind of the trade-off that we're making. And so the place that this is applied, you can see in the book, this is applied to several different scenarios, which are all seen, when you think about it, they're interesting. Suppose you take out, why would the kids ever take care of their parents? Is an example it's used. Now, it might be because you love your parents. It might be because you don't want to be cut out of the will, right? But suppose we don't even sustain it that way, right? The parents, the grandparents at this point say, right? The grandparents, should the parents ever take care of them? And this is saying, yeah, I know that you could go and not pay for the nursing home and get the 8 instead. But somebody's going to come in and take care of you the next when you're a grandparent. And they're going to put you in the nice nursing home or whatever it would be. They're going to take care of you instead of just letting you go. So it's the promise of sustained cooperation. It can't be that the game ends. If the game just ended, right? If it were just a 2-period game and just ended, it wouldn't work. But it's the fact that somebody else is new is going to come and replace them that allows us to sustain the cooperation. But this is actually what we think happens in businesses, right? It's not as if all the workers are hired at the same time. They're hired at different times. It's not as if all the parents and the grandparents, right? They don't all start at the same time. It's overlapping. These generations overlap with each other. And it's the promise that when you are retiring, that you're going to be taken care of, you're going to get the 10, that allows you to say, I'll sacrifice right now and I'll help you out, grandparent, or my parents who are old. Instead of taking the 8, I'm going to take the 5 right now so that when I'm old, you'll take care of me. Or my kids will take care of me. And the people that actually enforce that is the idea is that if I ever, so now I'm the kid, if I see my parents not take care of their parents, that is my grandparents, then I say, I'm not taking care of you. That's what this is, right? This is saying, if I ever saw this not going on, then I'm moving to here. I'm not taking care of you. But this applies in lots of places. It's kind of the intergenerational idea. But why do politicians who are leaving office, why do they not just shirk all their duties? It's because they care about other things. They care about, say, policy, right? So they care about a party not being harmed in the future or something like that. So they must care about something in the future. The trick is that you notice we couldn't sustain the cooperation if it were the other way around. In your last period, that's when you have to be made better off. You have to be essentially paid in your last period. And you're willing to sacrifice today so that you can get that payment in the second period. Because if you defect and say, oh, I want that 8 looks tempting compared to that 3, I say, well, if you take that 8, then I'm really going to punish you. And you're not going to get what you want. So you see how this is another way we can sustain cooperation? And perhaps this is even more realistic, because we're not assuming that people live forever. As a matter of fact, we only assume they live 2 periods. That's really constraining. We just assume they live 2 periods, and we assume in their second period, they're going to take whatever they can get. That's what we assumed. They're going to take whatever they can get in their second period. But the promise of that is enough for them to sacrifice in the first period instead of grabbing the 8. Now, let me, could we sustain 8-8 this way? Could we sustain 8-8 forever? On the, not in the Grimm-Sugar approach, in the overlapping generations approach. What will happen to the person in the second period if we're supposed in their second year of the company, if we think we're playing AX forever? In their second year, what should they do? Jump to here. You cannot do anything to get them off from doing that. You can't do anything. So we cannot sustain in an overlapping generations model, even though in an overlapping generations model, we can't move to there. We have to move to instead to here, switching back and forth. If we were playing it as a regular repeated game, where we live the same periods, where we don't overlap, then we could sustain this. We could get that. But in overlapping generations, we can't. So we got 3 different ways of trying to solve, say, a prisoner's dilemma. One is through leadership, one is through indefinite repeating, and the other is overlapping. overlapping generations. And essentially, we can see cooperation in all aspects, although, you know, it's not exactly cooperation, but it's kind of cooperation, right? That getting 10 plus 5 is a lot better than getting 3 plus 3. So you're made better off. All right. Good luck on the assignment. So we're going to meet back here on Tuesday.